Hi, my name is Katie Lee, and welcome to the first episode on my channel. This is a series or show of what I'm calling audio video essays. These are going to be little vignettes where I delve into specific topics I'm passionate about. And today, I would like to start by discussing my favorite princess, Merida. For a short while, I uploaded a video on this topic, and I ultimately decided it was not my best work. I couldn't figure out how to connect my microphone, the video itself was stiff and awkward, and I decided that video was just not my format. If you recognize my voice, you may have heard one of my podcasts I run with my friends, of which there are multiple, and I landed on this idea of short audio-only video essays. If you happen to have seen that old video, you might notice this is following the same script, just hopefully much better quality. So with that, I would like to start by saying Merida as a character is fascinating. While defense of her character has risen over the years, critiques dismissing her as just an immature brat are still prevalent. And I've yet to see a positive analysis delving into her character sort of consolidated into one place. And that's my goal with this audio essay, because I think a lot of people not only miss the nuance with Merida's story, but are also way too hard on a 16-year-old child for not wanting to be married off as a political peace pawn. But I digress. Where to begin? We're introduced to older Merida through the means of her family dynamic, after seeing the wonderful bond Merida had with her mother and father as a child. This is crucial to not only establishing Merida's place in the family, but also the change in the operation of the family unit, both with the introduction of her younger triplet brothers and the now strained relationship she has with her mother. Starting the film with this contrast is crucial, as it instantly makes clear the relationship arcs that need to take place, as well as the full circle story of falling out and reconciliation. Side note, Merida introduces her brothers with one of the best lines, which I imagine is just incredibly relatable to any eldest sibling out there. We devils more like, they'd get away with murder. I can never get away with anything. But what follows is much more important in establishing the tension between this mother and daughter, in a way that is honestly quite sad for how on the nose it is. I'm the princess. I've got duties, responsibilities, expectations. My whole life is planned out, until the day I become, well, my mother. She's in charge of every single day of my life. There are two major points established here that are reinforced throughout the film. Merida is resentful towards her mother in the expectation she holds for her, and Merida longs for freedom. This is followed by the absolutely breathtaking sequence of Touch the Sky, which just exudes adventure and freedom. What's so interesting to me about this song, though, is that if we listen to the lyrics as Merida's wants and also her worldview, the song states, I will hear every story take hold of my own dream. Legends are lessons they ring with truth is later attributed to Eleanor, and yet here it is as part of Merida's philosophy. This set of lyrics is already setting up and foreshadowing the coming together of these two opposing mindsets as Merida does just that. We see later down in the ruins that, for all her dramatic, ancient kingdom, and falling off the bed, she was in fact listening to the story and internalizing her mother's message. And it is through this story that Merida is able to fix her mistakes and take hold of her dreams, the life that she wants. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What I love about the scene that follows is that before the information bomb of the marriage proposals, the following scene with the family at the dinner table has Merida joking and connecting with her father, and Eleanor doing nothing but criticizing her, including her interest in archery. Even more heartbreaking, Merida tries to excitedly connect with her mother and share what she did that day, only to find her words on deaf ears. How many of us have felt like this before? Like our words and wants have gone unheard despite screaming. Make no mistake, Eleanor is just as much at fault here as Merida, and the film makes explicit note of that. To add insult to injury, when Eleanor excuses the brothers from the table, Merida's immediate reaction is to ask, what did I do now? Which is just so telling and an absolute gut punch. This is a girl on the defensive, having been hyper criticized her entire life by her mother. Her bristles are up, and then comes the inciting moment of the entire plot. The news that the firstborn sons of the other clans will be competing in games to win Merida's hand and become her betrothed. And everything in Fergus's reaction shows how hesitant he is, because, while flawed in his own right, he knows his daughter and has a good bond with her. While Eleanor's reaction to being upset about this shows that she's so preoccupied trying to parent the daughter the world expects, she hardly knows or sees the daughter she has, if at all. And sadly, I think that rings true for a lot of parent-child relationships in this world. I think a lot of people hear Merida say, "I won't go through with this, you can't make me," as well as, "No, it's what you've been preparing me for my whole life," as a sort of female equivalent of Chad Michael Murray on the football field telling his dad, "No, I'm throwing away your dream," and accuse Merida of being this forced, "I'm not like other princesses" type character. And in a lesser film with weaker character writing, I may agree with that, even that such a character might seem forced or annoying. But here's the thing, if there is one thing Brave, for all of its flaws, excels at, it is character writing, particularly through relationships. Merida is not a shallow meta-critique. Her apprehensions to this past and her established desires are authentic to her already strongly established character. She is a spirited, strong-willed soul who longs for adventure and freedom, and we're about to see those traits clash with those of her mother's and the strain in their relationship come to a head, which propels the entire plot forward. If conflict was informing character and Merida's attitude was forced, I would agree with this critique. But that's not the case here. This is character informing conflict, an in-depth exploration of two very different personalities and generations and their dispositions, values, and desires clashing. I would also like to note that Merida's being different and conflicting ideals with her society doesn't come at the expense of her femininity, which I love. This film is absolutely above making its female protagonist more masculine to not fit in, and I could not be happier about it. My response to this criticism comes down to this. The archetype Merida is accused of being is contingent on the character being two-dimensional and their contrarian attributes being inauthentically forced. Merida could not be further from this. She is fully realized and her spirit and sense of self is brimming with authenticity. She feels like a fully fleshed out being, and that is a foundation that I'm not like other girls' heroines have the luxury of receiving. Back to the linear plot of the film, we see Eleanor dismiss Merida's plea as, "It's just marriage, it's not the end of the world." But for Merida, at this point in her life, it is the end of the world. It is her freedom being restrained, her life being taken from her and out of her control. The first three opening scenes are quite literally a sandwich of two scenes of shackles and expectations for Merida, with her dreams and freedoms in between. Dare I say, Merida is not just misunderstood by her mother, she is practically invisible to her, and so Eleanor is to Merida in turn. It is a cycle of stubborn pride and strong will getting in the way of healing, which is okay. Side note, I am not only coming at this from the perspective of someone who, at 25, has never been in a relationship and isn't sure if that is what is meant for my life, very much a Merida in that regard, but also a strong-willed individual from a family of strong-willed individuals. And as I've struggled with my relationships with my own parents in the past and worked hard to try and mend them, this film hits a little too close to home in many ways. Say what you want about the flaws in this film, its depiction of familial love and relationships is masterful and means a lot to a lot of people, myself included. It doesn't hurt that I did archery and absolutely love the sport and just generally love Merida's character design. So that line of Eleanor's is said as she's weaving the tapestry, in which Merida is depicted with her fiery curls restrained, again re-emphasizing the dichotomy in the daughter Eleanor feels she needs versus the one she got. And of course we get the, in my opinion at least, iconic intercut parallel dialogue of Merida and Eleanor, and in this we see just how similar they really are. But also in Eleanor saying, "What do you expect of us?" A lot is said. Deep down, Eleanor is just as shackled by expectations as Merida, and while the relationship is so strained by this point she doesn't really know her daughter well, she does know enough to know why this hurts her. From her perspective, there's just nothing she can do about it. It's breaking her heart as a mother and has torn her loving bond with her daughter apart for years. Merida just isn't ready or certain this is something she wants for her life at all. She's not dismissing marriage ever in the future, but she isn't sure if that is something she'll ever want. What she is certain of is that she isn't ready for it now, and her screams for help to her mother might as well be mute. And if there is any doubt Merida's being married off as a peace pawn, that is put to rest with Merida's gloriously sarcastic, "We'll expect your declarations of war in the morning." The entire sequence is so sincere, Merida re-emphasizing her want for freedom, that she feels marriage is her life being taken from her at this point, while Eleanor brings her more adult mother's perspective and expresses what she does is out of love. The only issue? The other can't hear. And they end with their final plea, the key to healing strained relationships like soap and water is to sickness: communication. If you would only just listen. And of course, the clans arrive, and Eleanor helps her daughter get ready, saying, "You look so beautiful," as a mother does. And yet it rings hollow when there is such little understanding between them at this point. So much is unspoken in this scene. It's quick and subtle, but it actually makes me tear up when Eleanor's queenly facade drops for just a moment as she sees how unhappy and uncomfortable her daughter is. Merida's face lights up with hope of understanding and escape out of the situation before, "Just remember to smile." The look on Merida's face, the expression in her eyes, and animation of that hope deflating honestly makes me tear up. For just a second, she saw the mom she's needed, and not the rigid queen who she could never please or be who she needed her to be. Moving on to the presentation of the suitors, I absolutely love that Merida appreciates the physique of that really built guard, who they think for a moment is one of the suitors. It's such a humanizing moment for her. She's a 16-year-old girl, and yet this moment doesn't diminish the fact that Merida does not want romance or especially marriage at this time, or undercut the driving conflict. Merida still knows what she wants, and in desperate last effort to take her life into her own hands, walks out and says her iconic line, "I am Merida, firstborn descendant of Clan Dumbra, and I'll be shooting for my own hand." And there's that incredible shot of Merida turning with the sound building and then cutting out to look at her mother with an absolutely unwavering death glare. Notice also how Merida introduces herself. She is proud to be herself, proud to come from Clan Dumbra. She just doesn't want to be forced into a role that does not fit her. When confronted quite aggressively by her mother about this decision, an act of rebellion, the boiling pot of tension between them spills over. And in this scene, Merida says the following: "You don't care. Listen." And with a final condemnation, points her sword to the weaving of her mother on the tapestry, and with quite the hefty hand of foreshadowing says, "And you're a beast," followed by, "I'll never be like you. I'd rather die than be like you." Fear and desperation has turned to anger. And yes, Merida is bratty and immature in how she handles these emotions. But I would ask you, how many of you have said similar things to your parents at Merida's age, vowing to never become them? I know I did. I know as a stubborn person conflicting with my stubborn parents, I often lashed out. Merida is still a child. She may be a teenager, an older child, but she is not fully matured. I struggle with the processing and regulation of anger, injustice, desperation, and so much of what Merida is feeling, resorting to threats and words spoken in the heat of the moment that I later regretted. And make no mistake, it is anger and desperation Merida is feeling here. Desperation to keep a grip on her own life, and somewhat righteous anger at what her mother is doing, and that she's not helping her. The look on Merida's face is one of glaring daggers. And Merida isn't entirely unfounded in all of those emotions, but proceeds to go about handling them the entirely wrong way. The tapestry is obviously quite symbolic, showing the mother-daughter divide, and becomes a focal point at the climax of the film, when Merida falsely believes stitching it up will reverse the spell. What I would like to note here, though, is that there's so much visual symbolism of Eleanor being the odd one out in the family, both with her brown hair in contrast to the rest of the family's redheadedness, to the separation of her from the family in the tapestry. She's the one who married in. This is a family conflict story where the heroine doesn't fit in, but isn't portrayed as the black sheep of the family. Rather, the conflicting force of Eleanor, the mom, is. And that is so complex and interesting. It's really the film showing both perspectives fairly and making an effort not to demonize Merida, which I think could have been incredibly easy, but actually visually show a two-sided reconciliation story by depicting Eleanor as the black sheep, for not supporting her daughter more. As a consequence for Merida's rebellion, Eleanor throws Merida's bow into the fire, and honestly, seeing that beautifully carved bow burn, I get Merida's pain. But this goes beyond this bow being a personalized piece of art that Merida has crafted over years. It is a core part of her identity. It represents her freedom, her escape, her interest, everything she has been grasping for. So to Merida, seeing her mom throw that into the fire is really seeing her mom throw her as a person into the flames. It is the ultimate rejection, mom telling daughter what she really thinks of her. Merida shakes her head as her anger turns to grief and sorrow, and does the only thing she knows how to do: ride off and escape. We really get to the thick of the plot from here as Merida follows the wisp that lead her to her inevitable fate, reconciliation with her mother, in the witch's cottage. In her hurt, Merida gives the pendant her mother passed down to her as payment for the spell, to try and get out of this fate of marriage, and phrases it in the vaguest, most scathing way possible. Yes, Merida would be terrible at genie wish-making and could learn a lesson from Aladdin in this regard, but that's not the heart of it. It's the fact Merida's instinct isn't to say, a spell to change my mom's mind about the marriage, but a spell to change her mom herself. And if that is not telling you the heart of the issue here, how deep the cut goes, I don't know what does. When Merida gets back and Eleanor expresses how she was worried sick about her, Merida is surprised and says, "You were?" This is a mother-daughter relationship so broken, Merida didn't even think her mother cared. And yes, as she unamusedly hands her mother the cake and passes it as a peace offering, in the ultimate selfish deception, this is a mistake. Merida is in the wrong here. Her lack of care and consideration and concern for her mother, as she is clearly in pain leading up to the transformation, is a scathing character flaw. This is Merida's lowest point as a person, and yet this flaw once again feels authentic to her established character. We have all been immature, we all make mistakes, and we have all at some point not been our best selves. This is the entire point. Merida and Eleanor's reconciliation, and half of that is Merida's character arc of growth, lessons learned, and taking accountability. Merida states right after her mom is transformed that it is not her fault, not once, not twice, but 3 times, and is an absolute brat to her mother with lines such as, "Now you've done it," and an annoyed, "Come on, mom." While some of this short temperament is, yes, Merida not wanting her mom to be killed by her own father, I think a part of her deep down knows she is absolutely at fault for this, but isn't ready to come to terms with it yet. This is the journey Merida goes on, learning the many ways in which she was wrong and meeting in the middle with her mother. And to those who want to condemn and dismiss Merida as a brat for her mistakes, I would ask first of all, who hasn't made awful mistakes coming from a place of pain? Hurt people hurt people. And second of all, would you like someone to do the same to you? Not forgive you for those actions made or words spoken that you regret, that make you beat yourself up or haunt you late at night? This film is a tribute to the power of forgiveness and personal growth by means of accountability, the power of not roadblocking ourselves for our past, but learning from it to become better people. Forgiveness is one of the most powerful things we can give as human beings, and it is also one of the hardest things we can extend to ourselves. Back to the plot, Merida and Eleanor find the witch's cottage, and I love that Eleanor's gut instinct is to shield Merida from the light and explosion in the cottage, as they get the news that there is a ticking time bomb to reverse this spell, and the means to fix it could not be made more clear, being intrinsically tied to the core themes of this film. Fate be changed, look inside, mend the bond torn by pride. With regret starting to set in, a rainstorm around them, Merida says we'll sort it out in the morning. The first use of we to mean mother and daughter together since Merida has been a little girl that we've seen. And Merida recalls the memory of a thunderstorm when she was little, her mother comforting her and saying the words, "I'll always be right here." The look on Merida's face as she recalls this tells us that she is well aware that those words may not be the case for much longer due to her actions. Reality is starting to sink in, and with the weight of this realization, the path to healing is opened. In the morning, a new dawn and new day to leave past grievances behind, Merida and her mom start to bond and come together as they get food. We see how Merida's talents and experience in nature come to be incredibly helpful, while Eleanor puts her crown down for perhaps the first time since she married Fergus. With a lingering shot of the crown left behind on a rock, however, we see Eleanor begin to lose her humanity and become a full-out bear for the first time. Into the Open Air is a beautiful song about the mending bond and the importance of not letting the love you feel go unspoken. And this is the turning point. Because the love was always there. They just didn't know how to communicate it. The joy on Merida's face as her and her mom have finally been bonding, followed by the ticking clock and heightened stakes of Eleanor losing her humanity, are a recipe for reflection and accountability on Merida's part. Here she is, finally making amends, and it all might be taken from her. There is a reason the Mend the Bond tapestry at the end depicts Eleanor in her bear form. Eleanor needed to transform in order for both parties to learn their lesson and come together. The witch's spell was not a sham at all, but fulfilled both of Merida's requests, her fate being changed by means of her mom being changed. What Merida didn't expect was to take the long way round, the physical transformation enabling the internal transformation that truly mattered. And of course, this theme of the physical representation compared to the internal and emotional comes up again with the fixing of the tapestry. And as Merida and her mom work together to get the tapestry, I love seeing Fergus's defense and appreciation of his daughter, from him declaring, "None of you are fit to marry my daughter," to his chuckle of appreciation when she screams, "Shut it." Merida hasn't lost that spirit about her as she's learning this lesson. Her personality and spark hasn't dampened, but she's using those qualities to command the room just as her mother would. And if there's any question of Merida learning a much needed lesson from her actions, she begins her distraction speech by saying, "I know now how one selfish act can change the course of a kingdom," before quoting her mother, "Legends are lessons, they ring with truth." And she goes on to recall multiple stories from their clan's histories, of them working together, not only bringing home the themes of reconciliation, but showcasing skills in diplomacy that she could have only learnt from her mother. Merida has been listening and learning. Her mother's lessons she so despised have had value. And she finishes by declaring, "I've been selfish. I tore a great rift in our kingdom. There's nobody to blame but me, and I know now I need to mend my mistake." These words are mostly for her mother, of course. Merida wants Eleanor to know that this ordeal has taught her a great lot and she sees that she was wrong. They just need to meet in the middle. And that is precisely what happens when Merida is about to give in to marriage and Eleanor tells her to break tradition, follow her own heart, and find love in her own time. The look of relief and gratitude on Merida's face actually makes me cry some watches of this film. The speech is the coming together of two previously opposing worldviews, meeting in the middle. Merida sees the value of her mother's lessons and is no longer running from her place in the world as a princess, but she's going to fulfill that role in her own way, fitting to her traits, personality, and interest. Fergus even recognizes this and compliments Merida's de-escalation of the situation, saying, "Just like your mother." We then get to the film's climax by means of misunderstanding, and we see Merida's desperation to change her mother turn into desperation to save her. That shot of Merida reaching out through the window? Incredible. Merida cries and sobs for fear of her mother, and she is fiery as ever and charges at the door with a chair and a fire poker. What I perhaps love about this climax most, however, is Merida and Eleanor's fierce protection of one another. We went from Merida being surprised Eleanor even cared what happened to her or where she went when she rode off on Angus, to multiple instances of Eleanor physically protecting her daughter and Merida fiercely protecting her mother in turn. Merida, who gave no concern when her mother was in immense pain earlier in the film. This is solidified by her "don't hurt her" when Fergus finds them in the castle, and of course her incredibly powerful "I'll not let you kill my mother" during the confrontation in the stone circle. Merida has changed all right, and she is not going to let her mother pay the ultimate price for her mistake. Not if she has any say in it. It's honestly incredibly moving when Merida is about to be mauled to death by Mor'du, which is incredibly dark, by the way, for a family film, and Eleanor breaks out of her restraint to protect her daughter in the ultimate showcase of the term mother bear. They have come so far. On another note, I love that Merida is a fierce and brave heroine who gets scared. In the ruins when she is pinned down by Mor'du, and as I stated, quite literally about to be mauled to death, she is terrified, as she should be, and she is still brave, Fear is not the absence of bravery, but the precursor to it. And in the end, Mor'du is defeated, and his spirit gives Merida a grateful nod as he is able to move on and become a wisp, to guide others to their fate. Merida has been able to do what he could not in time: let go of pride and heal what was broken. The second sunrise comes up, and this is the part of the movie where I usually really start to break down in tears, because the tapestry, it isn't working. And Merida's confession and what she believes to be the last moment she has with her mother is beautifully simple. I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. I did this to you, to us. You've always been there for me. You've never given up on me. I just want you back. I want you back, Mummy. These words not only show a growth and understanding that is contrary to the accusations of immaturity, they show that Merida did not appreciate her mother and all she had done for her, just as Eleanor did not appreciate Merida. Merida is a girl who needs her mom, and she is now faced with losing her mother forever due to her mistakes. I cannot even imagine. I've worked hard to grow in my bond with my own parents and vocalize my appreciation for all they've done for me, and I cannot fathom the pain of not getting to express that gratitude to them. Merida thinks it's over, and she's using these last precious moments to say these words to her mother, long unspoken words that she deserved to hear. Merida believes her mother is about to become a fully wild bear, by the way, and she is hugging her, crying into her arms, to grasp the last presence of her mother. It is beautiful beyond words, and Merida unknowingly undoes the spell with the final, genuine words, I love you. The idea that a confession of love between mother and daughter can transform, while taken to the literal here, is true. And I actually love that Merida was under the impression the tapestry would undo the spell, because it means there's no mistaking her words for anything but authentic and genuine, as they had to be for them to work. The message is made undoubtedly clear when Merida says, Mom, you've changed. And Eleanor recognizes, oh darling, we both have. And through all of it, neither of them compromised their values or personhood for the other, but merely learned to come together, and maybe even embrace another side of themselves. And so we end as we began, a loving relationship between mother and daughter. As Merida says, fate is woven together like a cloth. And while yes, brave does refer to the adventurous nature, tenacity in the face of danger, and warrior clans of Scotland, it also refers to something far more important: the bravery it takes to reconcile, to say sorry, to admit you were wrong. Thank you for listening to what I had to say. Merida means a lot to me, and this film's depiction of familial relationships means a lot to me. If you saw the original video, you know I have a Merida shirt and the pendant from the film, which a friend graciously gifted me. Multiple pieces of art, as well as one of the limited edition dolls of Merida. That's not to say you have to own or buy things to love a property, character, or any aspect of a story and be a fan, but I do enjoy representing my favorite princess. That's all I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.